Thank you, Alex, for that introduction and all of the interesting questions that you did. I thought that session was provocative, asking YouTube things like, so who's going to survive? So Tim, we're going to start with Russell Brand. The Russell Brand allegations are obviously very serious. I don't want to trivialize this at all. You've got some other investigations going on. You've got Tim Westwood coming at you. Who's next?
Well, I think these are very serious allegations. I said yesterday, and I laid out clearly the investigation that we're doing. But I wanted to echo Alex's words that I thought were extremely well put, which is, I think we just can't be complacent. And this is not an issue that can be just put down as wholly historic, if I'm honest. I think there's industries where you have this, and we've talked about it, and I think this is an important and healthy dialogue to have around these deep imbalances of power. Often I think in reflecting on this, because you think about all these things, is these high adrenaline environments where you've got a production going on, or you might be, and we've had stories of operating theatres or trading rooms. I think there's a deep responsibility for the leaders now. And we've been at it for a while here, and I'm proud of the progress, but to really constantly be doing a few things. Firstly, setting clear process. So you have very, very rigorous support at work systems. You have whistleblowing process. That has to be flawless.
Well, what about
But you also have
culture?
to set the culture. That's where you're exactly right.
Process is one thing.
And I've never been someone that says, often in these crises, and I've dealt with a few bits and pieces in the BBC, is
a few.
Often you can run to process. And the process needs to be there, but more importantly, the process needs to be trusted, and the culture needs to be one of trust. And you have to, I've spent a lot of time since I took this job. What are our values? What are the code of conduct? What's an acceptable way of behaving? I talk a lot actually about, I've actually had a lot of response on this in terms of kindness, the ability to listen to people, to treat people with respect. And there has been deep problems with misogyny, abuse of power, and we just have to be utterly vigilant, be unaccepting of it, and create a culture in which, I think this is really important as well, that where there's a trust that bringing information forward is treated very seriously. And I think our record is we will go out at things in recent years and will be very transparent. There's never a sense that we want to cover anything.
Okay, so it's about leadership, as you say, as well, not just process. Process has to be clear. Totally. It's about leadership. You were the director of audio in 2008 when Russell Brand was just sort of ending his tenure at Radio 4. It was all around this.
Radio 2.
Radio 2, sorry.
Yep.
It was all around the Soxgate thing, and that was why he resigned. That's why Leslie Douglas left the stage.
Correct.
You were there. Looking back now, why wasn't more done? It seemed, according to the investigation in the Times and Channel 4, it was an open secret that he had,
well, I think to be fair
views towards women.
To be fair, when I arrived on the scene, I was there for a few weeks, and that hit. And I think if you read, by the way, it's online. You can read that Soxgate review. It's a rigorous piece of work on what happened on the editorial breach. And, to be fair, that led to significant departures, and I think...
But there was more going on, and it wasn't followed up on.
Well, I think in some ways we dealt with the huge issue we had in front of us. With hindsight, you can always, reflect on, maybe there could have been things that you can look at, but I think we did a good job on that review and did the right work.
So you don't regret that more wasn't done at the time?
I always look back with hindsight when you hear things coming out and you go, could you have done more? Could you have asked more? We're all asking those questions. Could you have done more? Of course you ask those questions.
It's still a problem now, as you say, so more has to be done.
Well, no, I am proud of our culture. When I go around the BBC, we're having very, I think, profound conversations, and we have been for years now in terms of saying, are we getting it right in terms of ensuring there is no abuses of power, that people behave flawlessly in terms of respect to each other, kindness.
Yeah, but you have ongoing investigations now. You've got Hugh Edwards, you've got Tim? I mean, there's other...
That's why I say you can't be complacent.
Okay.
You've got to, and we've got to be careful we don't prejudge all these investigations.
That's true.
And I say that with caution because my instinct is that there are significant problems. But it's a judgment here. I think what I've seen is significant progress. But I think, as was said at the beginning, and I think everyone in the industry, we've got the people in the room that can make this happen, is we've all got to be committed to change. And that is just the right thing to do, and we need to get on with it.
One last question on this. Have you ruled out any kind of external review on this? You're doing it as an internal.
I haven't ruled out anything. I think it's the right approach and proportion at this point to get a serious internal review led by Peter Johnson, who's an excellent and senior leader with great experience in this area. I would say to everyone, as others have done, if you've got any information, come forward to the BBC. And we'll
but you haven't ruled out an external review?
I would never. I mean, I don't rule out anything. I just want to go and get the facts.
Okay. Obviously, we could talk more about this or not. I'm going to move on to talk about, you said, well, I want to get into freely, but you said, I think a year ago, all TV is going to be over IP. And it was rather shocking at the time. We were saying, the BBC's saying that all TV is going to be over IP. So now we've got this freely thing. I love this another name, Freeview, Freely. I mean, how many more frees have we got here, Tim?
Well, free's always been good.
Free's good, right?
So even the audience are cheering the name.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway,
good name. All right.
Of course.
So, isn't this really tied to prominence, due prominence? I mean, and is this enough? Because this is basically going to target older people. It's kind of the way Freeview did. I mean, and we've just spent a whole hour with Alex talking about younger people.
Sorry, when you said, is it just tied to prominence? Prominence is critical.
It's critical.
I mean, we'll be talking about the media bill, and I think we should, I'm sure in this conversation we'll go on to the critical point we're at with public service broadcasting, where we actually, I think as a society, need to choose and intervene and say, what are we going to create based on the environment we've heard extremely well articulated this morning. And I think there's really big things at play in terms of freedom of speech, our local creative economy, social cohesion. There's really big things at play for us in terms of our decisions. Now, part of that, and I'm a big fan of this because I've got form in terms of having been part of on the Freeview board or founding FreeSat, is I think the idea that public service broadcasters come together when you're seeing these changes, and this is nothing to do with the switchover. Yeah. By the way, switchovers are always contentious, whether it's electric cars, dare I go there, or whatever. It is. But this is nothing to do with switchover.
Okay.
Okay. That's a secondary topic. I tend to be much more about demand-led change. And we've done that, by the way, this audience, and I know many people have spent hundreds of hours on it, digital television, we've done it.
Yep.
So the simple thing on Freely, getting to the point, is that we now know that by about 2030, most people will be using the internet as their primary connection. Right. It's probably about 15% now. By the way, they're using the internet, but they're keeping their broadcast. I think we're miles away from any kind of switchover. What I do know is that I don't want the public service broadcasters and households who may be less attuned to digital change, all those things, to be disadvantaged by not having the choice and the wonders of the iPlayer, ITVX. That's crazy. So I think us getting together and saying to manufacturers, here's a way which audiences can transition to an online connected television where they can trust us, because they do trust us, and we haven't talked enough this morning about trust. Trust is really important, and people trust us. We offer a free service, and we work with television manufacturers, other platforms, and critically, we offer a flawless platform where you can get live television alongside catch-up television
but
and
the point is,
SVOD.
Prominence is key to this, because the OEMs, the manufacturers, may put you on, but if you're not up there in the guide or on the front page or the landing strip or whatever it is, you're not going to get found.
Of course.
So how confident are you that you're going to get...
Well, I think Freely's got a really good chance because it's got all of the public service broadcasters together, and sometimes we don't have to talk ourselves down in this country. It's exhausting me.
Okay.
I mean, we've got all the public service broadcasters. We've got people with fantastic experience in working with major TV manufacturers.
So you think it's all going to be fine?
So, well, no. I think this is going to be a fight.
Me too.
And I think that you're never going to own the whole market. Loads of people want to own the front of your television. But I do think that having the public service broadcasters as one player in the game for a big section of society, that is well worth investing.
Okay, so you think due prominence will come through as well?
Well, I think due prominence, that's one element of how you guarantee scale. Because this is important, it's being in systems where you have a shareholding and you can run it, great. You have other things, which is the media bill, which is utterly critical. And we need to get on with that. I think you'll hear that from all the public service broadcasters. Really important. And then the other one is, look, it's trading. It's dealing with platforms as the BBC and public service broadcasters and saying, okay, how many of your, where are we going to sit? Mm-hmm. And it's also working with people who care about how they're going to offer our services and our content, not, dare I say, be wholly driven by the algorithm.
So let's move into strategy, and maybe you can build in sort of some reaction to kind of the kids issue, the younger generation.
Sure.
Is there a ticking time bomb? But on the strategy question, you told the House of Lords in July that you'd have a strategy document, I guess, by the end of the year. Where are you on that? Are you basically basing your strategy on the idea that the license fee is essentially a busted flush, and so you're trying to, fashion your strategy around that?
There's about 4 questions in there, but I'll get to the license fee. I think the first thing is, I think we're doing a pretty good job at the BBC in terms of being utterly committed to a couple of things. One is content. I really like what Angela was saying about, we are a creative, at the end of the day, the BBC is a creative editorial organisation that needs to do distinctive things that no one else does, and whether that's in news of the highest standard impartial. So firstly, our strategy is points of difference. Yeah, I'm not a guy that just wants to follow the market. I don't want to chase the market. I want to chase where the audience is, but we don't need all of their time. That's really important. The other thing is we need to go where they are, and the strategy we're deploying at the moment, the corporate jargon of value for all, is really critical, which is we're trying to migrate as much as our money into things where we're differentiated in terms of our public values, which is critical, but also gives us scale and gives us that impact. Happy Valley, I saw would be, or David Attenborough doing a wildlife program about the British Isles that gets on the top list. That's pretty extraordinary. The other thing we're doing is, as we look at that, we're less defined by distribution now. So, what I mean by that is, if you take iPlayer, we're seeing drama numbers, extraordinary success. I mean, I just saw the numbers for Sixth Commandment, must watch, and other titles. And it's not, you're learning as you go. Those are being delivered through online. I mean, it's obvious, everyone's doing it. Online as well as broadcast. And the strength of us together on that is really important.
So one of your strategic pillars is iPlayer.
So the strategic pillars to deliver value for all are get the content right, making sure you're joined up and using online flawlessly, which is really critical.
Including our friends at YouTube, yes.
Maintain impartiality in the face of enormous pressure and the world moving in different directions on that. And the last thing is use the commercial income. Now, in terms of our future strategy, I think the world is moving so fast that we are doing some thinking, which says, with this speed of transition, how, if we really care about public service broadcasting, how are we really going to ensure that things like public service-led news is prominent and delivered in a digital age? I mean, the BBC's got a rich heritage of innovation. And I want us to see in the next, and we'll set this out, I think we're going to have to make some choices about how we innovate to make sure we stay relevant and make sure, I mean, our purpose is trying to the charter.
So make some choices about how you remain relevant. So that means what? Cutting some news programs, or maybe not leaning into BBC overseas, or what are some of the choices? I think
the biggest choice is where's your editorial focus? Because we're an editorial, and I don't think it means, you may not say, we're not ever going to do something over here. It may be, this is the type of work we're going to do. I think the other thing is you've got to make...
What could get cut easily?
Sorry?
What could get cut easily?
In my life, nothing. Not a lot. Not a lot. Nothing. And that's the wonder of the BBC, to be fair. People care, and you've got to do...
but you've got to set out a strategy document. You're going to have to cut something, because the license fee isn't going to be what it was. You're in a defunding mode.
But when you say cut something, it's really important. Say, if you take something like local radio, where we have made some changes. We've kept the budget, but we've been migrating money into digital services. That's been incredibly difficult, but the right decision. How we migrate the BBC from a broadcast-centric organisation to a digital-first organisation, we need to do that. Another thing is we need to think about how we work with the commercial arm to ensure that our content supply is absolutely vibrant as we go into the next phase. And also we're focusing editorially on those areas where we get most bang for our buck, but also are differentiated versus the market. We also need to secure the future of our technical support, because this is not going to be an easy game to secure scale.
So what's your view on the funding models that are available to you? I know this is...
So the funding models then are secondary in terms of, okay, so we absolutely reshape public service and say this is what we want to deliver. And I think it's fundamental to society that we do that. I think in terms of the funding, that then becomes the supporting mechanism to do that. Now, as a board, we've set out very clear principles, and we believe in universal funding. We believe in the independence of the BBC.
Okay.
I don't believe, and one of the things I hear thrown around is, I don't believe you can separate the funding mechanic from the editorial content. So if we move to a radically different funding model, which I think at the moment, it's very clear that our backing is for a universal service that preserves our independence. The specifics of that, I think, are actually secondary. I think the license fee works well at the moment, but they are secondary.
If it's something else, as long as it's somehow universal, that would be
well, it's more than universal. If you look at the principles we set out, does it guarantee our independence?
Okay.
Does it guarantee creative industries growth? They're the kind of questions. Is it fair, and does it offer good value?
So I had a business model question, so let's just do that now, because you're kind of talking about that. BBC Studios' ambitions, Mr. Fussell came out, I guess, a couple days ago and said he's going to double revenues by 2028 from 2.1 billion to whatever the number is, 4.2. What is that all? Is this how to leverage your brand? I mean, is this how you take the BBC brand and leverage it and make more money to sort of make up for the money you're going to lose, potentially?
Well, I'm not seeing us losing any money in the next 4 years because we're a CPI on the license fee side, but I am seeing a market in which, in order to have the resources to compete in terms of technology, funding the programming we want to do, attracting the talent we want to attract, we're going to need more. We're going to need capital, we're going to need investment. So to do that, and we're going to need to grow the commercial arm. Now, what that doesn't, I mean, you have to look
And you're going to buy indies, he says, as well.
Well, we've already bought production
but more.
companies, and there's a great success story for ITV Studios, BBC Studios. We should be incredibly proud, because where would those businesses be if UK entities hadn't worked with those creative partners? Also, I think the ability for us to work with those partners in creative terms, we talked about the difference in terms of creative work. So we've grown, we've doubled commercial revenues in the last few years. And there's no reason why we can't do that again. And we're also looking at services, on-demand services in the US. We've grown work there. There is enormous potential for this. I mean, I'm very excited about the commercial arm. We've also got the debt facility. We can invest in things. And we've got to be appropriate. It's got to be in line with our values. I don't see a contradiction there, because having run BBC Studios and we got enormous growth, the key selling line for BBC Studios, hello, I'm from the BBC. Here are our values. This is what we stand for. We're not trying to take over the world. What we're trying to do is do good things, and this is what we do.
And of course, the main thing is, how do you continue to get good access to talent, and will you be able to pay for talent?
It's everything. People ask me why we moved a lot of our production into BBC Studios. Of course, there's the financial business case, but the overwhelming answer is to keep talent at the BBC. I think, we are fighting a real battle. Now, the good news is, because we're a values-driven organisation, I think people care rightly about the BBC. Huge things are at stake in terms of what kind of society we have.
So you're not overly worried about Netflix taking all your talent?
Oh, I'm pretty healthily paranoid about it. Yeah? But if you look at the person commissioning our drama, they came from Netflix. Yeah? This can be, life is not just about the cash. Sorry to break that to you. It's not. It's about what we want to leave as a legacy, surely. So sorry, you may think I'm being naive. That is not my experience.
But that is not what Netflix is thinking.
Honestly, well,
That is not what YouTube is
But it
thinking.
doesn't matter what, I'm thinking what I'm thinking, if you don't
Okay.
mind. But it's like, I'm not being rude, but I believe my executive team is that I've spent, the biggest achievement in some ways is to get the top people in the industry working at the BBC. Now I've got a battle on my hands to keep talent. Particularly, I tell you, one of the areas I'm really working on is things like people who are brilliant at engineering code and other things. But it's very interesting this morning, listen to it. I think we're in a bit of a second age here. We all rush in, social media does what it does. I think people are beginning to reflect on, okay, where does this leave us? Where does it leave us as a society? What's the quality of debate? What's the quality of communal experiences that we're going to have together? What's the quality of trust? We haven't even talked properly about trusted news.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling lost, and that really resonated with me and my household in terms of people, having all this choice, and you feel slightly, oh God, I'm just not getting a return here. The BBC doesn't need all your time, but if it's habitually part of where you go for trusted content. I'm going to finish. That is why people are coming to us.
Yeah, the trusted content.
But I don't want to be naive about it because I'm not wholly on corporate script. I don't do the US corporate scripts. I think we're in a battle. And sometimes you have to look at models like...
Alex says you're fighting for your business lives.
No doubt. Anyone that thinks we aren't into a massive fight for relevance. And the thing about the BBC that I worry about is we get massively distracted on all the other things around us. And boy, we throw up quite a lot, yeah? And there are very important things, like the thing with, the issues we talked about earlier. And they're critical and important. But there's also a lot of chaff, stuff going on around us. The challenge for the BBC and the public service broadcast is relevance. And it's not a rearguard action to fight for broadcast television or anything. We must fight for our relevance. I'm not here to defend wholly the BBC as an institution. I don't actually see that as my job. It's the societal effects of the institution. That's why people are here. That's why people care. And that allows the most wonderful creative work. It allows editorially us to thrive. And we've got to get everyone, government, everyone, to really drive at this.
Can I ask you a quick question about impartiality in AI? Because it's a big topic right now. Generative AI, it's changing things. How can you have impartiality in a world that's being subsumed by...
Because we really are a publisher. Because we control what's on our services and what we publish. Mm-hmm. Now, what goes on around us could be all kinds of fun and games. But we, at the end of the day, as human beings, by the way, I'll answer that question, which is human beings will be in overall control in terms of what we put out there and how we curate our services. Having said that, there's so many exciting ways in which AI and technology can be used against our purposes.
Yep.
Watch this space. We're going to do more work. We are doing work on it. I'm quite excited. What is the right algorithm that could drive more public service value? How can we use that to serve us? But the answer to your question is, we publish as the BBC. And just to be clear, I am a publisher and an editor, and my job is editor-in-chief to make sure that what we publish is up to our standards. And AI will be, enabling that, but it won't be leading that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I want to ask you one more question. If you had one thing you would like Lucy Fraser to do, Secretary of State, what would it be to help you or to move your agenda forward?
The good news is I do think we're having a constructive dialogue, a very constructive dialogue. And I think there's the short-term answers, which I will echo again, getting the media bill done, ensuring the basics are in place to protect, and it is a choice to protect public service broadcasting in the medium term. I think the other thing together we should be working on is, as ever, which is, in the long term, a really strong plan for the creative. The creative industries are so precious in the UK. We've got this massive, amazing thing. We don't have to beat the Americans at doing everything.
You're giving more than one.
Okay.
So the media plan.
You asked for one, I've given you two.
I know, you're giving me two, that's good.
So I'm giving media plan, and I think between us working
a creative plan.
What is the plan for the creative industry? What's our ambition for the creative industries? How ambitious can we become? What is the growth plan together? And I don't put that on the government, I put that on the room, which is, and I say, we're not there to beat others took, I think we've got to be focused on our advantages, but there is enormous growth to be had. If you look at economic growth, you look at what we could do as a sector in terms of societal growth, just all the things we can do as a sector, storytelling. The great things about what we do in the room is we're just in this incredible sweet spot of generating economic growth and cultural return, social return. It kind of works.
We have to end there. Tim Davie, thank you very much.
Thank you.